Good evening, Auburn fans. Tough loss tonight. The Tigers lost the Peach Bowl to UCF. The score was 34-27, I believe. It was a sad win. Sad for the seniors. Sad for everybody.
Let's start it out on the easy question. Great or greatest Gus Malzahn coaching performance of his career? Put you down for greatest? Just great?
All right. Here's
They
what
played with a lot of effort in the second half, he said. Do you always want to do is you want to play with effort for one half of football.
This is a trend. This is a trend of Gus Malzahn teams in bowl season. They are very uneven in halves, or they just stink overall. Auburn's 1-4 now under Gus Malzahn in bowl games, 0-4 in January bowl games, and there have been some close losses.
They did win the Birmingham Bowl.
They won the Birmingham Bowl.
Take that away.
But this is I had one coach not affiliated with Auburn tell me that this is a team Auburn should have beaten by 4 touchdowns. They were bigger than them. They were more physical, but they were not today. UCF's defensive line and their defense made Auburn's offensive line look like the offensive line we saw against Clemson in Week 2. It looked horrible at times. Darius James played probably one of the worst games of his career.
And there are 2 guys on that line that want to be playing on Sundays, want to be drafted.
Right. It was a terrible performance.
That was not tape that they were going to want to have
and
an NFL executive see.
I would think that the more frustrating thing is for Auburn fans is that a lot of it is effort because of their first 2 drives to open the second half. They marched down the field on both of those, looked better on the offensive line, and then they just went back to doing nothing. Their next 3 drives, they had -5 yards total after driving 81 yards or whatever.
I don't know what the total of negative plays was. It was 11
10.
At some point. Was it 10?
It's finished with 10 at the quarter of the stats.
6 sacks.
Which might not be accurate.
6 sacks.
6 sacks, 5 in the first half.
Penalties as well. A terrible holding call on Darius James at one point that backed them up against their own end zone. It was bad.
It was poor performance, and it was one of those situations where Gus Malzahn said all the right things this week, and so did the players about how they're treating this bowl differently. It's a business trip or whatever. It looked like the same old Auburn in a bowl game to me under Gus Malzahn.
Well, it's embarrassing for him when he's saying all this stuff and none of it looks like it's true. You take a half to wake up.
Yeah.
You sleepwalk through a half of a game. Defense played okay in the first half.
Right.
A couple first drive,
they started the game hot.
Of the game, started hot. But even then, they just kind of wore down. Not a real focused effort. Jeff Holland had 1 sack and basically nothing else. Had one other tackle.
Yeah, we talked about this at halftime on Facebook. Auburn was, doing their typical thing of rushing around the edges, but Mackenzie Milton was stepping up and taking off running. So what Auburn should have done, I'm not a coach, but they needed to blitz the middle. They needed to bring the linebackers on some blitzes,
do some
maybe.
different things.
But they didn't quite do that. I talked to Kevin Steele after the game, and he said that they felt like they made good adjustments after halftime.
It's probably one of the worst coach games of his season. Especially with the adjustments.
To be quite honest, besides the breakdowns with allowing Milton to run, he hit some 3 passes that I can count that were like double coverage, and he just threw it in a tight window. And you really can't do anything about that.
But they never got the pass rush going. They never were able to kind of figure out that. They didn't even put much pressure on him to kind of.
They didn't blitz.
Yeah. So. He took a long time, and then nothing opened up, so he scrambled. It wasn't like he was running to begin with.
And Kevin Steele has shown this season he does not blitz a lot, and he didn't do it in this game either.
And with the talent they have, they figure maybe they don't. Maybe they'll get going at some point, but they never really did. Fans are going to be upset about this one.
Well, they probably should be. Listen, if you're a fan, you're a booster, you pay money to watch Auburn football and get season tickets and all that. Your head coach just is going to sign a 7-year, $49 million contract. You ended the season on 2 straight losses, one of which could have led to a college football playoff berth. Instead, you go to the Peach Bowl and then lose that game in frustrating fashion, have to play catch up for the entire second half pretty much after you go up a touchdown and then just completely fall apart after that and have to play catch up. And now you have to play a third straight game in this very stadium here, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Told you they should have
and
brought the cigars.
Yeah, they should have.
Should have brought the cigars.
And you have to open the season
Now
against
it hurts
Washington.
too.
And now you've got all these questions about Kerryon Johnson. Is he coming back? Is Jeff Holland coming back? Even Jarrett Stidham, though I'll have something later on that. That's not happening. But I mean, nothing against him. I just don't see it happening. Way too many good quarterbacks out there right now. And he did not have a very good night. Threw a pick six, by the way, to get this, UCF player who hails from Montgomery, Alabama. And that was the difference in the game, was that pick six. And it was an Alabama kid.
There was more than that.
I know that. But it was an Alabama kid who, by the way, I was told by Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. Auburn thought about offering him late, and they didn't do it. Just a weird game. And someone's building a house behind us.
I don't know what they're doing.
But, so other interesting things, the fallout from this, Herb Hand, as far as we know, his contract expires at midnight tonight. So does Travis Williams' contract, the linebackers coach. Now, Gus Malzahn's already said Herb Hand's coming back, and they're all coming back. But Herb Hand was asked after the game in the coach's locker room, what's going on with your contract? Do you have a contract? And he said, I'd rather not comment on that right now. He talked like a coach who's going to be here, of course, and talked about the future. But fans are definitely aggravated by his offensive line's performance.
Well, and you got to look at the future here. Look, you got an offensive line now with major
Big
turnover. And so do you want him to be the guy that's leading it, especially when he's shown in years past it takes him about 6 weeks to figure it out. And then this kind of performance kind of puts a stamp on things. This was supposed to be the best game. I mean, look, you're going against an undersized, underpowered team. You got NFL players on your line, and that's what you guys do. That's how you bookend the season with the 11-sack give up against Clemson, and then this game. I think there should be some evaluation on that. I mean, don't you?
Yeah, I very much agree with that on the offensive line.
Because there's no other changes here, right? I mean, most everybody's going to be back. Gus is back. How are you going to kind of get better on the offensive line when you look at sort of the problems they had was...
And these past two seasons, they've made changes. There's something's kind of changed, and this year looks like it's just going to be more of the same going forward, and, we'll just be better next year magically. But the coaching performances are what's being questioned right now, and getting the team ready and focused, because it just doesn't seem like this team was focused to open the game. Even though the defense shut UCF down for the most part in the first half, but UCF was still very much in the game and leading. It was just a weird feeling game, and we said at halftime it felt like the Clemson game with the way the Auburn offensive line was performing. Auburn couldn't run the ball. They finished averaging 2 yards per carry, which is the second worst performance this season, by the way. The first one is Clemson. I mean, UCF's defense is awful. They gave up 97 points. They gave up 97 combined points in their last two games, and then they hold Auburn to 2 yards per carry. An Auburn team that makes its money running the football.
Well, Kerryon, I mean, you talked to it after the game, and Gus said he was close to 100%, but I don't know what it was. He just didn't have that spark that he does. Broke a couple tackles here and there, but never got out in space. Never really got to that second level.
He had like two runs where you thought he was about to break it, and then he never happened.
And, you wouldn't say a terrible performance, but like it was an ACC championship game where he fumbled and everything and was off, but he just didn't feel like he was back to normal. I don't know.
Listen, the offensive line was
didn't do him any favors.
And Johnson now has developed more into a patient runner where he waits for things to develop.
Yeah.
Nothing was developing for him along that offensive line today, and I think that's partially why Cam Martin played a little bit more tonight or this afternoon. And they were probably going to play him a little bit more, honestly, because he's more of a fast switch runner. They'll just hit the hole and not be a patient runner tries to run. But the coaches, Tim Horton and Herb Hand and Chip Lindsey told me after the game that Cam Martin's had 2 really good weeks of practices and they were going to give him more carries. But you know what I think it is?
Never happens.
Well, they did. They gave him more.
3 carries,
but they probably should have given him more carries.
Yes.
It tells me they're preparing for the future.
Oh, that he practiced more so that...
Because Kerryon hasn't really let it be known to any of these coaches what's happening. but they're preparing for him not to be here next
I
season.
got some big question marks. I mean, Carlton Davis obviously sent home for illness purposes, what we're told. You got Jeff Holland, you got Carrion and Jarrett, who's just refusing to discuss the future. And I could see him losing 3 of those 4 guys.
Sure, absolutely. They
And
could.
that really is that's going to take a bite out of, I think, the expectations for this team.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier this week. If they won this game, Auburn might be a top 5 team next season going into the year. Now they fall out of the top 10 this year, and they'll probably maybe be a top 20, top 15
And then on
team
top of
next
that,
year.
you lose some of your best playmakers.
So this could have been a team that was considered a contender for a national championship next season. So all of a sudden, the optics of this loss and possibly losing 3 of those guys, as you said, can make them like more of like a top 20 team going into
And
the
now
season.
look, so you got Georgia playing right now. I don't know what the score of that game is. You got Alabama playing tonight. And you're trying to finish up this recruiting class too. And the last 2 times you've played has not been pretty. It'll be an interesting off season because I think it's going to be, fans are not going to be happy.
Georgia's
Yeah.
catching up.
And especially when
they?
you
24-31.
you've committed $49 million to a coach that has won few big games the last couple of years. I mean, you win the Iron Bowl this year, beat Georgia. Then you lose Georgia a second time, you lose another bowl game. A lot of questions for Gus going.
Well, it
this
was
offseason.
just like, wow, 2 amazing wins and then 2 just really frustrating losses to
Yeah.
end the year. And then, of course, earlier in the year, the LSU loss, which everybody was scratching their heads over. And then the Clemson loss, which was the worst offensive performance ever by a Gus Malzahn team.
Yeah.
This was a very weird year. But it'll be interesting to watch. Carrion certainly acted like a player that may have played his last game.
I had video up and tweeted it out of him getting a hug from Chandler Cox. He got a hug, I think it was from Eli Stove, a couple other players as he walked off the field. And obviously, you're kind of comforting each other, but I mean, you don't
really
do that
Yeah.
when you're just sort of.
And when he was
playing
talking to the
that shit.
media, he had a big smile on his face and was very outgoing, which he is usually, but it didn't seem like he was coming off a losing performance all that much. He was talking about how great this
You're
season
gonna make
was.
millions of
all that.
dollars. I'd be smiling too. I'd be
Well,
smiling
sure.
all the way to the bank.
Well, that or maybe he's just very happy he gets to go home and not have to play football for a
Not
little
get
bit
hurt
and play
for
Call of Duty.
Very-
five straight weeks.
We'll play Call of Duty. So I'm sure you guys have thoughts and questions. So let's take some
Yes.
questions.
absolutely.
What are your questions? And then we'll answer a few, and then we're gonna hit the road home. I haven't been home in almost 2 weeks.
Whew, Brandon.
Brandon's gonna grab some of that glitter, take home with him.
I'm gonna go to Snow Angel.
I think it's UCF Fast, UCF Fierce glitter.
Why no hot routes to account for the blitz?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question.
You
I got
can't change the.
a story coming up. I'll probably wait till tomorrow morning for it. Very, it's not going to make fans happy about the adjustments they made at halftime offensively. Did they make adjustments?
Guess we'll have to find
Hard to
out.
say.
They didn't.
The adjustment was letting Noah
Yeah.
carry the ball 70 yards on a kick return and get his touchdown.
That was
So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that final play, speaking of weird stuff, that was a miscommunication between Jarrett Sim and Darius Slayton. Jarrett told him to go on a go route, which is literally just straight up the field. And he didn't do that. He turned
He
inside.
Slant in. Yeah.
He turned inside at about the 11 and ran beyond the yard markers. And he was open, but Jarrett would needed like another half second or second to be able to see that and
He was
throw
throwing
it.
to the
So
spot
he was
as
throwing the
opposed to
time route, the fade route, the go route, and he wasn't there. At the very least, it could have been a broken up pass by Darius Slayton because he would have been in the area, but instead it was an interception, and there was a miscommunication there. Jarrett says he blames himself for it, and then he needs to communicate better with Darius Slayton, but if he told him that and Darius didn't see it, that's on Darius.
Either way, the play didn't work. So
Didn't work. And they were going to go to the end zone, I think, 4 straight times, based off what Chip was saying. They were just going to keep going to the end zone instead of picking up yardage.
Questions, guys?
What's up with his fumble problems? I don't know. What is up with his fumble
Stidham?
problems? Yeah.
I don't know.
He does
I
have some
think he
fumble
just
problems.
freaks out a little bit too much still. He's had a fumble in each of the last 4 games.
And two of them were going under center, which you've railed against. So, and it doesn't do a lot for them. And that's not something that.
Yeah, Chip Lindsey's explanation about that was interesting too. He said that they felt like they could run the ball right at them, and it didn't go under center and do that. But they didn't do that. They went under center and tried to throw it. That's I don't know.
Apparently, Gus said at the press conference that they took it easy at practice this week. I don't remember that.
I don't remember him saying that in the press conference.
No, we went. They opened the locker room up. They opened the locker room up after the game for New Year's Six Bowl for 30 minutes, and that goes on at the same time that Gus is speaking. So we were all in the locker room because every player is available that played, and so we were there. So we didn't get to see Gus. We read through a little bit of the transcript, but
I don't remember seeing that.
I was there,
but I never
and
saw
I don't
that.
remember him saying that. But you guys usually know more than us. So.
Yeah, or maybe he said on radio.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe so.
I don't know.
Bowl record is lousy. What is the bowl record? Is it only Birmingham?
Well,
Yeah, only the Birmingham Bowl's a win right now for Gus Malzahn. 1-4.
the prestigious Birmingham Bowl.
0-4 in January bowl games.
It's the biggest bowl in Birmingham, from what I'm told.
That's what we've been told.
Why didn't Petway play again?
He's
done
home
for
and
the
probably
season.
going to the NFL. That's another guy that probably won't be back. So, him, Carlton Davis, Jeff Holland maybe, Kerryon Johnson maybe.
Yeah, somebody mentioned Coach Frost. Heck of a job.
Yeah.
With their staff. They had 2 jobs. They spent weeks recruiting, leading up to the bowl practices.
Maybe he should be
took
getting
a
paid
couple of days
$49 million.
during and doing both. And took a team with less talent that had built-in excuses for being unfocused because their entire staff was not going to be back, all 10 coaches. Had a hell of a game plan, knew what Auburn was going to be doing on a lot of those short screens.
Yeah, they knew exactly that when that was coming every
and so that's
time.
coaching. That's watching film. And
Auburn didn't, Justin.
heck of a job for them. And then Auburn comes out, looks like they're going to take the game away, and then UCF refocuses. So that's what coaching looks like. And you can kind of see why fans would be frustrated that, look, your team got out-coached. Flat out coached by a staff that doesn't even work for this team anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they opened the second half, you thought, Auburn's about to take this over. And then UCF, as you said, they made adjustments and took it over. It was all pretty much UCF from there. Listen, UCF should have secured the game with those 2 field goals. Those 2 field goals they missed.
Yeah, they missed 2 field goals.
One
so
was
this
blocked
game
by
would've-
Derek Brown, but the other one was wide left, I guess, near the end to give
It
Auburn
wouldn't have been
chance.
they wouldn't have had a chance to win the game if they just hit those field goals.
Right.
One of those 2 field goals.
So it's one of those situations where UCF was in full control of the game from the end of the third. The moment Jared Sim got sacked in the third quarter, I went, this is not looking good. I don't think they have it in them to get this win.
Yeah, and you're never going to convince me if you're on a business trip and you get more penalties in the first half, or as many as you've had in any game all season.
Yeah.
Say you're in focus. Strange. Real strange.
Very strange.
Very strange. And Gus did kind of take some responsibility for
Well, that's
not their
nice
best
of them.
coaching game. So
That's nice. That's nice of him, getting paid $7 million
you know.
a year, taking responsibility for the thing he does.
I just picture him going home
First job.
to his money bin and just sitting in a pile of cash and being like,
Like
that was a
Scrooge
tough
McDuck.
loss. Yeah,
Yeah.
tough loss. Tough loss.
too bad. So sad.
Too bad. Give him my money.
I personally felt like we were a little less motivated than UCF.
Oh yeah. Well, it was obvious from the start of the game to when they came out in halftime. They were jumping around. It was almost like they went, "Guys, wake up! Here's some Red Bull. Wake up!"
Yeah.
And they were more energized. But then it went back down. It's like they came off their caffeine high.
Right.
It was just done. And then meanwhile, UCF, they never relented, ever. Even when they got down, they just kept pounding and pounding away. And that's why teams are undefeated. That's how you become an undefeated team. By the way, weird
Don't
stat.
underestimate that.
The last 2 FBS teams to finish the season undefeated, Florida State in 2013, they did that by beating Auburn in the BCS National Championship, and UCF, which beat Auburn today.
It's crazy.
Adrian Killens called it.
Yeah. And by the way, UCF, as much talking as it did, and they did some talking after the game too, they backed it up.
Yeah, they did.
They backed it up. And why not? They're a group of 5 school, and they're in a conference where they're all about Power 6, trying to make the AAC part of the Power 5, and they made a statement today. They wanted to, so they did it.
Yeah, heck of a game for them, and they acted like it afterwards. I mean, this was their Super Bowl. I mean,
Absolutely.
They were not shy about talking how much this meant about this win did.
Yeah, I saw someone say that their running back didn't back it up, but it's like, well,
Still won. So
he still won. I think he's fine with that. He's only a sophomore too, so he's got 2 more years to have better seasons and better games.
Why do we not throw over the middle in the passing game?
They started to there with Will Hastings when they needed to.
yeah, they got.
Goodness gracious, was he getting pelted by tacklers. But it was almost as if they went back to what they were doing earlier in the season, with Will Hastings.
Right.
Across the middle. Also interesting, they didn't go to Ryan Davis a lot early, at all actually, and then they started to a little bit, but the screens they kept running were getting sniffed out. They weren't adjusting. I mean, it's like that UCF knew exactly when they were running. I mean, whenever they had 2 stacked receivers on the left or right side, mostly the left side, they knew exactly where the ball was going.
Well, it's like, it's
Same when
Devin Barrett came on the field. You're like, oh, they're going to throw it to Devin Barrett. Throw it to Devin Barrett. It doesn't take much, especially. I mean,
and we don't watch film.
Like, yeah.
Can you imagine watching
film? If
film?
you're watching film and you're sniffing out these tendencies on your team that's paying attention, they saw the cues because, like, they knew all those screens were coming. They were set up right in front of Ryan Davis, and we're like, we're not letting this happen. We're not letting this play, this scheme, this part of your scheme beat us. And
Auburn was out leveraged every time on those plays, even the ones in which Ryan Davis juked a defender. Auburn was still out leveraged there. UCF still had an extra defender there.
Yeah, each time they had more guys there, and that different than even the SEC teams weren't reading out those as well. So Auburn just struggles when people figure things out. Auburn seems to struggle. What's the response?
Yeah.
Y'all got questions?
2 more questions. We got plenty of coverage at auburnundercover.com right now. How many stories we got up, you think?
Well, I did
5, 6?
4, you did 3.
Yeah, so we have about 7 stories up, plus the analysis piece. And,
plus analysis, so that's, 4.
And photo gallery, social media reaction, that huge pile driver.
Yeah, that Derek Brown hit.
Derek Brown was pretty active today.
Yeah,
Blocked
he's
field goal.
He's a big man, too. He's the height, I think it was 200 pounds almost, the difference between those two. 6'5", 315, and Killens is 5'8", 155. And he's like, I put my arm around his waist. That was all I did, and I thought he fell. So, and I mean, you kind of think that's ridiculous, but I mean, if you think about it, if you're that big and you're just kind of going at, but it's like, okay, I can see that, because he's a strong dude. I would not want to run it.
No.
I'd run the other way.
No.
Y'all have some
Does the Auburn
colorful
president
questions.
have LSD problems?
What is happening?
No players have commented on whether or not they're going to leave to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
Jarrett's going on a 3-day nature hike.
Yeah, or hunting trip.
Or hunting trip. Even
Yeah,
better.
North of Mexico.
The only interesting thing about that was
Just to really
Jeff
think about
Holland
it.
said he's enrolled in classes in the spring, and he did not submit NFL paperwork to get a draft grade, which was surprising.
Yeah.
But he also said he doesn't want to talk about what his decision is going to be, what his process will be for making that decision. So it's hard to kind of get a gauge on.
Is it unheard of for someone to not submit their papers?
No,
If
because
they're
they
planning
could
on-
do if you're Rodney Gardner, Kevin Steele have NFL connections and the personnel departments.
Yeah.
They could talk and get that evaluation for him and get a read on things. But at the same time, it's sort of interesting just because we know some Dontavius Russell did, Kerryon Johnson did, Jared Stidham did. And you're allowed about 5 or 6 guys, and so Jeff Holland and Carlton Davis would be 2 of the other guys that would be the likely names, not many others, because you got guys like Trey Williams, all seniors. So there's no other draft guys. I think Deshaun Davis did as well. Yeah, so that's where they're at with all of that.
Yeah.
We don't know what's up with Petway. Probably.
I
It's
Going
Gus
into
on the
the
hot
NFL.
seat. I love that. I love that question.
well, listen, all hypotheticals, of course, but he loses to Washington early in the season and loses a couple SEC games early.
If he's guaranteed, if the contract is
Is
guaranteed,
guaranteed,
it doesn't. He could
won't
literally
lose all
run
games.
around naked on the sidelines during
What?
Washington, and there would be no consequences.
Well,
they're
no,
not paying
the police would
$49.
arrest him.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe he gets a citation, but they're not paying $49 million to get rid of a coach. There's no way.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see what Auburn does with the athletics director search and hiring someone, because it's going to be like, here's everything that's wrong and good and everything that's going on in the department. By the way, this head coach we're paying.
Talk about having your
$20
hands
million.
tied. You're like, we're going to hire an athletic director, but we signed the football coach to a 7-year deal for $49 million, and a bunch of it's guaranteed. Good luck.
My tuition's gonna
Cross
go
your
up.
fingers.
That's what
A lot
happens.
of Herb Hand questions. You
I
guys talked
think
to him
he-
a little bit tonight.
I think he's sticking around unless like some big powerful boosters like get involved tonight and they're like, don't do it. But he may have already signed something anyway. We don't know. He said he wouldn't comment on it.
Not a lot of news there.
So
And they're friends, which muddies the waters.
very, very close friends. Very close friends. And that could be, I don't know.
And do we have any kind of update on a new athletic director? Any timeline
I don't.
there?
To be quite honest, I haven't heard a thing in like 3 weeks.
Jay Jacobs was here, though.
He was.
He did the
Yeah.
prayer circle, too.
This was his last football game.
As athletic director, he might go
athletic
to
director.
another football game sometime.
I don't know. Maybe he'll just become like a monk.
Or
Maybe.
please-
So.
All right, well, that should probably do it, because they're going to close this place
And
down.
it's
in a
really
few
cold
minutes.
outside. I didn't bring a jacket, and I want to run to my car. And
Uh-oh.
run, I mean, I'm just barely walk.
Gingerly walk.
Gingerly.
Gingerly.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you
At some point.
at some point.
Now
in
it's
the-
basketball
in the-
season.
in 2018, because it's
Yeah.
a whole new year now.
Yeah.
So yeah, basketball. Start tuning in. It'll be super
Something. Auburn plays Tennessee tomorrow.
exciting.
At Tennessee.
True.
That's a very tough game. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. And thanks for following us throughout the football season.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. Go
Happy
to
New Year.
auburnundercover.com for full coverage. Thank you.